Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 9,241, 9,242, 9,243, 9,244, 9,245, 9,246, 9,247. No, 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 no. No, this can't be. There's only 9,247 bees in this hive. Oh my goodness, no, they must have swarmed. I've done everything to stop them from swarming, but they still swarmed. I can't believe it. No! Honeybee colonies are bound to swarm, and today we're going to tell you why you shouldn't sweat over it. Good afternoon, beekeepers and bee enthusiasts. How you doing? It's another great day at the farm. And we're hanging out. It's cold, y'all. It's freezing out here. I'm out here freezing. It's 20 degrees out here, so why not come at you with another great topic? And of course, we're talking about don't sweat over the honeybee swarms. Now, all of us that are beekeepers, we know there's a lot of big literature out there. There's a lot of big YouTube videos out there that basically preach that you got to stop your bees from swarming at all costs. That it's bad if your honeybees swarm, and it's just a terrible thing, and you got to stop them from swarming. And you got to do splits, you got to cut queen cells, you got to do all that mess, and you got to stop them from doing it. But honeybee swarming is a part of a honeybee's life, and almost all colonies in the spring will go through swarming of some kind. So we're here to tell you why you don't need to sweat over it. It's actually a cool thing if honeybees swarm, and it's not bad to let them swarm. It's going to be a great topic. It's going to be a lot of fun, and without further ado, let's break right into it. So I'm standing out here outside of one of our swarm hives right now. And basically, I'm going to take it down probably before the spring, and I'm going to rebait it because it's been up for a few years. And I'm going to get it set for a new colony. But this swarm hive is basically prepared to catch a new colony of bees. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because swarm season is coming up, and it'll be here before you know it. And swarm season in North Carolina generally happens early to mid-April. That's when it starts. And then it goes for a few weeks, and there's all kinds of new honeybee swarms. And swarming is a lot of fun. But what is a honeybee swarm? A honeybee swarm is how honeybees reproduce on a colony level. So basically, colonies will be in a space, and if there's no room for them to expand in the springtime, then basically they will start hatching a bunch of brand new bees and getting them ready for the swarm season. And then once they reach a very high number, and I forgot to mention, they're also hatching new queens. But once they basically get to a high number, then about a third and up to a half of the colony will leave with the old queen, and they will go search for a new home. And the old colony that remains behind will have a brand new queen, and basically they will be set, and they will go from there. Now, a lot of beekeepers out there teach, and they're big into it, that you should stop your honeybees from swarming at all costs. That honeybee swarming is a bad thing, and that if your bees are flying away, you're losing bees, and it's just a big problem. And they will preach things like, hey, you need to split your hives, which if you don't know what a split is, it's basically where you take like half the frames or so out of a colony and you put them into a new hive. And so you have two split colonies now. And they will teach that you need to do that. They will teach that you need to cut queen cells. You need to do everything you can to stop the swarming from happening. But what we want to make clear is honeybee swarming is not a bad thing, okay? Because for one, if we think about what happens in a swarm where basically honeybees will hatch new queens and the new queens will fight until there's one new queen that remains behind, the old queen leaves and goes to another location. The new queen lays behind, so that colony that remains behind has a brand new queen, and she's fresh, she's ready to go, she's new, and she's ready to lay eggs and ready to go. And so you generally will have a much healthier colony that will remain behind due to, them casting a swarm. So then the question that a lot of people say is, well, the bees are going to swarm and I'm going to lose a lot of bees if they swarm. Well, it is true that a lot of bees will leave, but also you have to remember the honeybees are laying a bunch of eggs during this period, and they're producing a ton of honeybees. So yes, while it is true that they leave and basically go and search for a new home, or a third up to a half leaves, still many bees remain behind, and the colony that remains behind is generally healthy. They're good to go, and they're in good shape, and like I said before, they have a brand new queen. So the honeybee swarming is not necessarily a bad thing for like the old colony that remains behind. But what about the bees that leave? I mean, there's no way we can capture those bees that leave the hive, right? I mean, once they're gone, they're gone. Well, of course we know that's not true. And in our apiary, what we do is we put a lot of swarm hives, such as this one right here, and we put them all around our property to catch bees. And basically we surround our property with these swarm hives, and so whenever our honeybees do cast swarms, then basically it'll be as easy as them finding a new home on our property and moving in. And it's not a full guarantee. I mean, sometimes they just go somewhere else, and they can swarm for a very far distance. I think I've heard up to 10 miles. I could be wrong about that, but they can move a very far distance whenever they swarm. But we have always been able to capture a lot of bees in the swarm season, and as we've progressed through the years, since we've adopted natural beekeeping, we've been able to catch honeybees a lot easier. And that is because we have honeybees in our apiary. We're not fighting them all the time to try to do everything we can to prevent them from swarming. If they do swarm, then they will have plenty of homes to move into all around the property, and they'll be a lot happier that way. So in our apiary, we don't really look to try to stop our bees from swarming as best we can. In fact, a lot of times we actually promote the swarming of our bees because, I want the most swarms to be in this area as possible when swarm season comes. And so in the spring, when swarm season is coming, I'm not going to each of the hives and trying to stop them from swarming at all costs or whatever. Like I'm allowing them to swarm. Now, let's say you really don't want your honeybees to swarm. You really don't want them to. You want to prevent them from doing it. Well, like I said earlier, honeybees will generally decide they want to swarm if the space they are living in is not big enough for them to expand. So let's say there's no colony in this hive right now. But let's say we had some bees in here, and over winter they were on 7 frames, and we had, of course, our empty space with the straw. Well, if we didn't want them to swarm, then what we could do is in the springtime, before swarm season happens, maybe mid-March or so, we could go in and we could go ahead and expand the hive and give them, 4 or 5 frames worth of space, maybe more, for them to build on. And if they have a lot of extra space all of a sudden, and they have room to grow in, then in a lot of cases they will choose not to swarm because they have space. And a lot of times honeybees, if they have the space to grow in, they will elect to expand into that new territory rather than casting a swarm out into the open. So the best thing you can do if you really don't want your honeybees to swarm is basically open up some space for them in the main hive before swarm season starts. And if you do that, then a lot of times they won't swarm. They'll just build onto those new frames and they'll be good to go. But, like I said, we don't even really do that. I mean, I could go to my colonies and add a bunch of space in the springtime and, get them to feel like they don't want to swarm. But I want to catch as many swarms as possible. I kind of want them to swarm. And, swarms, as we all know, are the healthiest honeybees. You always get really good honeybees when you get swarms. And, I would like to just have all the real estate that we have set up all around our property to be taken by honeybees. We want them to move in, and we want them to really enjoy it. So, we set up the traps everywhere so the honeybees can move in, and then basically We let them swarm in the spring, and then we will open the space up on the inside of the hives, but generally after swarm season, so then they can start building on honey frames. But, you know, if you don't want them to swarm, you can just open up the space, and then that way they'll be a lot less likely to swarm. And then they'll also start building honey and comb on that new space inside your beehives. So it's a lot easier that way. And yeah, we kind of just let them do what they're going to do. And it's been pretty efficient for us. So the biggest thing I want you to take away from this is don't sweat over the honeybee swarms, okay? Swarming is a part of a honeybee's life, okay? Just about all colonies will go through swarming in the swarm season, and it is just the natural way bees act. And it's probably a very big deal in a bee's life, even if we don't see it as such. So rather than doing everything in your power to try to stop those bees from swarming, doing your splits, cutting your queen cells, you know, doing all that stuff, why not look at it as a benefit? Instead, see it as, hey, well, at least my old colony that remains behind has a brand new queen, and they're good to go. And then if you put out swarm hives all around your property, you have a really good chance of catching the swarms that your honeybees cast out. And so you could see it as, hey, yeah, they're casting swarms, and I might be losing a few bees here and there, but at the same time, I'm giving myself a much higher chance of catching swarms out there. And we all know swarms are the healthiest honeybees you're going to find. They're always the healthiest. Swarms are really good bees. You know, they're adapted to your climate. They're used to your area. They're used to your temperature. They're used to your weather patterns. They're used to all that stuff. So swarms are really healthy bees. And you shouldn't be afraid to let your bees swarm and then try to catch those swarms after they do so. And trust me, we've had a lot of fun doing it. Like I said, we're catching swarms like crazy now. I mean, every year we're always getting swarms. And it's because we're not fighting our bees tooth and nail to try to prevent them from swarming. And really, when it comes down to it, swarming is a part of their lifestyle, and we're not going to try to change that. So we hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time, we'll see you soon.